Well, the hits just keep on coming with the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Amid new revelations, the agency has been rorted up to $2 billion, including on drugs, alcohol and new cars. Some people on the NDIS are receiving as much as $2 million worth of services every year, and that's just for an individual. At the current rate, the cost of the scheme will reach almost $100 billion within a decade. It already costs more than Medicare and will soon outstrip defence. The reality is the NDIS now has 600,000 participants and is growing by tens of thousands per year. It's not what it was designed for. It was designed for the most severely disabled, yet those with autism and developmental delay account for 45%. Joining me now is psychiatrist Dr Tanveer Ahmed. Good to see you again. Look, $2 billion in rorts. How can it go on at its current rate?
It's funny that this will become this key aspect of Australia. People know Australia for all sorts of things. But in the next 5 or 10 years, we will be known as the most disabled nation on earth, despite being one of the most prosperous, peaceful ones too. And it's all because of the NDIS. Now, I guess what I want to say, Danica, I think all these fraud stories, they don't surprise me. I know they surprise Bill Shorten. But we're focusing on fraud, but arguably this is the smoke from the fire. The fundamental design of the scheme is flawed. Both sides of the government are to blame. We can't just blame Labor either. There were 3 terms of the Liberal government, and they did very little to reform this stuff. And now it's got so entrenched. And arguably the question is, can it actually be reformed, or does it need a fundamental overhaul? But the problem is more and more of the population, a bit like superannuation, are going to be, it's going to become too entrenched and it's too hard to change it. Look, at a bigger level, Danica, what's going on is we have a medicalisation of the human experience. We have huge financial incentives to be disabled. And we have a dilution of the term disabled. Half the money is going to mental health ailments. But what's really going on is a broader modern trend in Western societies, and Australia will possibly lead, of this proportion of the population that are essentially dependent and demoralised and have very little incentive to work, and they're propped up by schemes like both the disability pension and NDIS. That's partly what's going on. That's this bigger trend, and it's like a freight train. The NDIS has made it a freight train, and while it's meant to have served the severely disabled, it's become something far, far bigger.
Well, this is the problem because, as I said, there's now 600,000 participants. Those with autism and developmental delay, Tanveer, account for 45%. Is this realistic?
Well, no, absolutely not. I mean, Australia now has the highest rate, just about the highest rates of autism in the Western world, and all these. So when you're out there in the public, you just see these people with 5 different diagnoses, and they're all a bit grey. And often, what's really going on, problems with self-regulation. They end up losing illicit drugs, and all this NDIS fraud is sometimes to do with drug use and all sorts of. They're going on cruises, etc. It invites it's incentivized for excess and fraud and corruption. And to be honest, we can't even blame the users. Like it is the fundamental design of the scheme. There just aren't guardrails on the spending. But what's happening now is there will be possibly, if not an overreach, there's still people who are severely disabled. And I would say they're increasingly the minority. They're increasingly the minority of the users here. And they actually get penalised. They're the ones that actually get penalised. And I have patients like that, and they genuinely need the help and they're struggling to access it. But I think the bigger question politically is, can it actually be reformed, or does it need some fundamental overhaul? And is that even possible, given how entrenched it's become in our life? Both, not just with people getting it, there's also a huge employment industry around it. Of all sorts of workers, and we could even ask, okay, was this more like a national socialism scheme where we're funding all these people to essentially look like they're doing stuff? They're sort of walking around and doing stuff and getting paid and seemingly doing stuff. So there's some very interesting debates here going, and it goes to the heart of some modern trends and Australia is leading the world in it, and not for good reasons.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on. I mean, you know, who knows what the solution is? It's not even a means-tested scheme.
Well, I would say the Liberal Party's been weak on this, and I think it's because it's too entrenched. Like, I know Dutton's come out in a small way, but for all the heat Shorten gets, and he should, and it's a Labor-designed scheme, the Liberal Party has been weak in really attacking this and trying to reform it.
Yeah, look, it's a tough one, and nobody has seemed to have gotten a hold of it. Tanveer Ahmed, we've got to go. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.